Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I think we're now 2 minutes past half past, so let's get started. So welcome and thank you for joining today's session, which is RGHI Fellowship Grant Writing Session for the 2022 round. So I will start by going over the application form and providing top tips for the various sections. My name is RGHI, and I work in the Strategic Research Office within London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And I've been helping manage the pre-award process for RGHI. And there will be time at the end for questions. There is a Q&A function, so if you do have questions that come up during the talk, please do pop them in, and I will try to either answer them as I go, if I'm able to catch them, and if not, we will get to them at the end. You can also use the chat, but the Q&A would be better for questions. So just a quick overview of the pre-submission process. So one thing to note is that some institutions do require you to let them know that you intend to submit. And this can be done in various forms. So it might be worth checking with your host institution what's expected of you in terms of letting them know about your submission. So for example, at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, we require you to submit a letter of intent that's then reviewed by various offices and teams at the school. So make sure that you check what you would need to do and find out what the institutional process is internally before you submit your application. You would then need to develop your research plan, prepare your budget, and often this needs approval as well. So make sure to contact the finance office in your host institution to help you with the budget. It is good practice to have your application reviewed internally. So if you're moving to a new host institution and you don't know who to approach, check with your supervisors if they can recommend anyone who can review your application. Best practice is to have your application reviewed by someone who is external from your project, so someone who isn't part of the project team. And this is a good way to get some comments and feedback that would give you an idea of what the panel might pick up on when they're reviewing. You don't have to take everything they take into account, but they could provide valuable feedback and suggestions to help you improve your application. You then need to complete the application form, making sure you complete all of the sections within the application form, and then submit your application. Once you submit your application, the application will then be reviewed by RGHI. So we will check for eligibility, remit, and completeness. If your application isn't complete, for example, you haven't used the templates, we will send this back to you and you will have some time to amend them. But ideally, please follow the guidance to make sure that you've done things correctly, that you've checked your eligibility, that you're within remit for the scheme, and that your application is complete and adheres to the guidance. Once we've done all our checks, we will send these out for international peer review, where your applications will be scored against the assessment criteria. We will then have a meeting to discuss the shortlisting and decide who to invite to interview. If you're unsuccessful at shortlisting stage, we will let you know and provide feedback. If not, we will invite you to interview. Interviews are scheduled to happen around September. At the interview panel, you will be asked a series of questions to assess you on the assessment criteria, and then we will send you the outcome and feedback of your application. So before you start, make sure that you check that the scheme is the most suitable for you at this stage in your career. So there will be further rounds of this, and it might be that you're waiting on an important paper, or you would like to finish your current position before starting a new one. So it might be that this round isn't the right for you at this stage in your career. Make sure that you check the eligibility criteria and career stage that the scheme is aimed at. It is for people who have up to 5 years postdoctoral experience. So it is very much an early career fellowship. If you are unsure whether you're eligible, please email us at fellowships@mail.rghi.org and we can discuss your eligibility. Check that your proposed project is within the remit of the scheme and RGHI. Make sure you read through RGHI's strategy so that you know which areas of research it considers to be the most important, and check its priority area. So your proposed project needs to fit within the priority areas that RGHI has defined. Discuss your application with senior colleagues and seek their advice about your choice of scheme and likelihood of success. Make sure you download a copy of the current guidelines for the scheme and read them thoroughly. Print them out, have it highlighted, make sure that you're following the guidelines of what we expect from you for the application. So some things to consider is person, project, and place. Fellowships focus on the individual. RGHI wants to support future research leaders. They want to invest in you as a researcher. So consider when would be the best time for you to apply. And your choice of host institution is important and does need to be justified. You need to have the right sponsor, supervisor, and mentor. So make sure that you've built the right team for your fellowship. There is a focus on training, so we expect you to have a detailed training plan. And the project must be designed by you and not your sponsor or supervisor. But make sure that you do get advice from your sponsor, colleagues, and the research office within your host institution. And again, read the guidelines carefully and do stick to them. So a bit more about person, project, and place. So this is what is commonly assessed for fellowships. So person, that's you. They'll be looking at your track record and research experience, your vision of how the funding will contribute to your career development and long-term aspirations. Please note that career breaks will be taken into account when assessing you as a person. For the project, they'll be looking at the scientific merit and importance of the proposed project and the fit to RGHI priority areas. They'll be looking at the quality of the research plan, the feasibility of the proposed timeframe with the requested budget. This is value for money, and it is a key assessment criteria. They'll be checking the appropriateness of the methodology and the potential impact of the results. And finally, place. They want to know that the quality and suitability of your research supervisor and the research environment for your research and the development of your independent career are appropriate. And this you will need to justify within your personal statement. So everything you need is on RGHI website on the fellowships how to apply page. So you can, if you click on the RGHI grant management system, that will take you to the grant management system page where you can start an application. All applications must be submitted through the system. We won't be accepting applications through email. The guidance is available here. And there's also, we request that you use the RGHI Fellowship CV template and the RGHI Fellowship budget template. So make sure that you download these here and use them for your application. So once you click on Grant Management System, you're taken to the Grant Management System page where you will need to create a new account. There's various tutorials, but it is fairly straightforward as to how to create an account. We do ask when you create a new account, details of your proposed host institution. So if you are planning on changing institution, we would expect you to have that information at hand. So make sure that when you create a new account, you've already identified that host institution. Once you've got your account created, you can then see all of the schemes that RGHI has available to apply for. At the moment, it's just a fellowship program, and you can then apply. One thing to note, you can start an application now and it will automatically save. You don't need to worry about saving or trying to do it all in one go. It automatically saves. So the first step in the application form is provides an overview of the guidance, but also it asks you to confirm your eligibility. So like I said, to be eligible, you need to have a PhD, have no more than 5 years full-time postdoctoral experience, and this of course excludes any career breaks. If this would be your first postdoctoral position, we do consider applicants who have not yet completed their doctoral qualification, but you would need to have your PhD awarded prior to the commencement of the fellowship. You can be based at a university or research institute anywhere in the world. You do need to hold a current contract of employment or an offer of employment from the proposed host at the time of application. So if you are moving institution, all we would need is for the sponsor to write in the letter of support that if successful, they will provide you with an offer of employment. And you must be employed by a university or academic research institute for the duration of the fellowship. And you are not eligible to apply if you hold or have held an equivalent fellowship, or if you have a core funded post for the duration of the award. A core funded post is when the university pays for your award, and these are usually tenure track. If you're unsure, drop us an email. So this is a required question, we ask you to confirm. The next step is some details about the project. And so here we do require the name of the key contact or authorized signatory at the host institution, their position, and their email. We ask for this information as we need it if you're successful. If you're unsure who this is, ask your sponsor or supervisor, and they'll be able to let you know who to put in. They won't be receiving an email, but we do need this information. We then need your project title and your start date, and the start dates must be between the 1st of November 2022 and the 1st of January 2023. And we expect you to commence work as soon as possible with allowances for notice periods. And then we ask for your lay summary in this section. Please note that we would ask you not to include any confidential information, as if awarded, the summaries may be made public on the RGHI website. So a bit more about the lay summary. You need to make sure that your summary includes the following information: the aims and objectives to be addressed, the importance of your work within the current field, what you intend to do, how you will do it, and the anticipated impact of your research. The summary should be able to stand alone from your application and should provide a concise summary of your research plan. The lay summary needs to be understandable by a general audience. So it can't just be for experts in the field. So make sure that you get your friends or family and other colleagues to read it to make sure that it is written for a general audience. The next part in the application is where we ask you to identify the primary RGHI priority area and then any secondary ones. So just to reiterate, the priority areas that RGHI have identified are role of hygiene in the epidemiology and transmission of specific diseases, setting specific hygiene-related interventions and their impact, determinants of hygiene behaviors in high-burden countries, intersection between hygiene, disease burden, and gender. You need to make sure that your project addresses at least one of these. So the next key section within the application form is applicant details. This includes the CV. And again, you must use the CV template, the RGHI CV template, which is available on the RGHI website, or by clicking on this link, it will automatically download. Make sure that you follow the guidance within the CV. You then have the personal statement and the training plan. So this is what the CV looks like. It is fairly straightforward, but if you have any questions, drop us an email and we'll be happy to respond. You can delete all of the text in italics because you are limited to 3 pages. So to save space, you can delete all the guidance within the CV. The personal statement is an opportunity for you to sell yourself. And I know this is something that's quite difficult and not something we tend to be good at, but it is your opportunity to convince the reviewers and interview panel that you are the best person to receive the fellowship. You need to write something about your career to date and future plans. It is your opportunity to sell yourself and your potential. Discuss your career path and track record. Explain why this is the right time for you to apply for this fellowship, and explain why you think you are a good candidate. Make sure you include information about your future plans beyond the fellowship, and explain how this fellowship will help you to achieve them. The personal statement should also include a justification about the choice of host institution. So this goes back to the place that I was mentioning. You need to explain why the host institution that you've identified is the best place for you to conduct this research. Next is the training plan. So all fellowship applications should demonstrate that you will develop your career as a result of this fellowship. The training plan should detail the training and development you will undertake as part of the RGHI fellowship and should be tailored to your needs and research proposal. You should clearly state how the proposed training program contributes to the overall research and fellowship aims. This should cover both the training required to undertake the proposed research or gain expertise in an area, but also training to support you into becoming a research leader. All of the proposed training must be justified, not only in terms of the research or the training, but also in terms of the provider, location, and cost. It must be high quality and good value for money. The training should also take place at an appropriate point in the research plan. For example, if you're planning on undertaking training in statistical analysis, this should be done before reaching the stage in the project where you analyze your data. Some examples of things to include in the training plan are formal courses, training in specialist skills and methodologies, placements, leadership skills, conference attendance, and overseas research visits. We do expect to see an indicative timeline for training. Sorry, can I just check that you can all see my slides? If somebody could give me a thumbs up, if possible. I'll just carry on for now in the hope that you can see them. I just got a message from Zoom. Oh, thank you, Drew. Okay, thanks. Okay, carrying on, the case for support. So in this section, there's the case for support, which is your proposal, and the dissemination and public engagement section. So I'll start with the dissemination, as that is fairly straightforward. In this section, we want to know what you plan to do to engage with non-academic stakeholders, as well as plans for the dissemination of findings to all stakeholders. So this is just what are you going to do with your results and how will you make sure that it reaches an audience. The case for support, so your proposal, is limited to 6 pages, and you're allowed an additional extra page of references. So references must be included at the end of the document, not as footnotes. So you get 6 pages plus 1 for references. And we have a list of headings that we ask you to use. And there's no template, but do make sure that you fill it in using Calibri 11 point and 2 centimeter margins. And you can upload it as a PDF. So when preparing your application, you need to make sure that you tailor your application for the RGHI fellowship scheme. So make sure you follow the headings. Make sure your proposal fits RGHI's priority areas. This is very important, and we will return the application if it doesn't. Show evidence that you can deliver. So this can be done through preliminary data, track record, or assembling the right supervisory team to provide that expertise. Highlight what's unique and novel about your proposal, and acknowledge any challenges or limitations, and provide a backup plan. Discuss the impact that your project will have as well. So, for example, a challenge might be that COVID could have an impact on traveling. Make sure that you provide a backup plan to mitigate the risks of that. So some points about style. Reviewers may read your application quickly. They'll have a pile of applications to get through. So you need to make sure that your writing is clear and concise. Repeat key messages throughout the proposal and sections. Put the key messages at the start of the sections, and feel free to put the key messages in bold to really draw the reviewer to what is important. Stay consistent with terms and acronyms and introduce some information at the right time. This is really important as well if you get feedback and you're moving things around within your proposal, to make sure that you then stay consistent with when things are introduced and acronyms are introduced. Sections should build onto each other. So introduction, objectives, methods, outcome, impact. Make sure you use the guidance and mirror the wording of the headings and structure to make it easier for the reviewers when they're reviewing your application. So again, for the case of support, read the guidelines and make sure you follow the headings defined. Explicitly state your objectives and hypotheses and provide methodological detail. If you have any, include preliminary or pilot data. Make sure your proposal is clear, concise, and not cluttered with technical jargon. You want to make sure that it's clear, not for just somebody who's an expert in your field. An expert in, granted, it doesn't need to be for general audience, but it needs to be read by anybody who could understand hygiene research. Structure your proposal in a logical way and make sure your application is formatted appropriately and within the page limit. Remember that your proposal will be read by experts in your area, but also by non-experts, which is what I was saying. Check for spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. So this is why it's important to ask people to review your applications as well. They can help with proofreading, because once you've looked at it so many times, it just doesn't, you don't pick up on these things. So that's why it's really good to get other people to look at it. So just to go over the case for support heading, we need the title of the proposed project, background and rationale, which RGHI priority areas addressed in the proposed research and how the proposed research contributes to the RGHI priority areas, aims and objectives, proposed methodology, including proposed study design, data collection methodology, and analysis plan. We'd like an anticipated timeline. This can be through a Gantt chart, for example. Anticipated outputs, including, but not limited to, anticipated manuscripts, published in peer-reviewed journals, additional proposals, and conference presentations. So additional proposals, we mean any sort of forward funding plans that you might have. The next heading is impact of the research beyond academia. And if applicable, considerations about equitable partnerships, as well as ethical considerations. The last two, you can remove if they aren't applicable to your project, but if they are, we would expect to see them. The next section is the budget. So fellowships will provide your salary full-time. So we expect to pay 100% of your working time salary for the duration of the fellowship. The salary needs to be determined by your host institution. So usually host institutions have pay scales. So it would be good to get in touch with someone at the host institution to help you with that and the budget in general, if possible. We will also provide research expenses up to $150,000, a training budget of up to $15,000, a travel budget of up to $15,000. And so those three are for the duration of the fellowship. We also provide a flat overhead rate of 25% of the total direct cost. Please don't include any open access publication costs, as RGHI will just pay these directly when you do go for publication. There's a number of things that the fellowships will not fund, so do make sure to check that you do not include these. So we ask here for the total anticipated project budget, and we ask that you upload as an Excel file the RGHI budget template, which if you click on that link will automatically download, and it's also available on the website. And finally, we ask for the budget justification, where we would need you to justify each item listed in the budget. Each item needs to be explained and justified. Remember that value for money is a key assessment criteria for the fellowship. So some points about finance. Ensure that the amount of funding you're requesting is sensible and within the limits set. All of the requested resources should be justified. Items that have not been adequately justified may be seen as unnecessary and removed from your application. Check if there are any costs that RGHI do not support. Read the guidelines carefully and make sure that the costs are entered into the budget template. Like I said, the panel will be asked to consider whether your proposal represents value for money. So make sure that it is not over, but also undercosted. You need to be able to deliver the project that you propose within the budget that you have costed. The final section is letters of support. So there's various letters of support we require. So within the system, once you know how many letters of support you need, if you click on, let's say 4 tabs will open. Once those tabs open, you fill in the email and click compose email. So this is it works as a third party. So you compose the email, it'll send it through the grant management system to the person providing letter of support, and they can then click on a link to upload it. You will not be able to see their letter of support, but you will be able to see in the system that it has been submitted. The system also automatically sends a reminder if they haven't done so 7 days after. I would recommend that you contact the people who will be providing these letters of support early on to give them enough time to prepare them and to upload them into the system. This is a requirement for your application, so it will be sent back to you if the letters of support aren't included. So this is the tab I was talking about. So here, for example, it says letter of support from head of department or equivalent. So you enter their email addresses, press compose email. We do provide a template within the grant management system that you can just copy, update, and then send to the person. So you just prepare the email and then click send, and it will automatically send. So you will need letters of support from your head of department or equivalent of the host institution. Sorry, yes, the recording will be updated, will be uploaded onto the RGHI website. Yes, so like I said, the recording will be made available after the session in a couple of weeks. It'll be uploaded. So you'll need letters of support from head of department or equivalent of the host institution. So this can be, it'll have various names. It could be director of the school. It could be dean of faculty. They're your sponsors, so they're guaranteeing that you will have the space and resources and the support that you will need. And this is also where they'll mention the offer of employment or that you will have a contract of employment. You need to identify a primary supervisor at the host institution who agrees to provide ongoing career development support and research guidance. You also need to identify up to 2 mentors to submit letters of support. At least one of those mentors should be external to the host institution. So if you're applying through a host institution in France, then you will need somebody who's external to that host institution to be your mentor. So there could be one mentor based in the host institution you are and one external. However, if you're proposing to work outside of the host institution, one mentor should be based at an institution in the country where the work will occur. So let's say you're based in a host institution in France and are planning to go do field work in Vietnam, then you will need a mentor at an institution in Vietnam. And in that case, that ticks both those boxes. So finally, a reminder of the assessment criteria. The panel will be scoring your application based on your track record to date, career development and progression. So this is your personal statement and training plan. They'll be assessing your research proposal and making sure it's aligned with RGHI priority areas. They'll be looking at impact of the research project. So make sure that you include that in your case for support. And they're looking at value for money. So all of the sections within the application will be reviewed. So make sure that you spend time on them and not just on the case for support. Finally, if you need any additional support, please email us at fellowships@mail.rghi.org. We have obtained access to resources to help you with preparing your application. It's an online research grant application writer's workshop guidance, and you'll have access to this for 1 month. And it'll talk you through the process, and you can then prepare your application based on this guidance. It is invaluable resources. Please do email us for access. And that's it for me. So thank you for listening and for coming today. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat. The Q&A, people can then, they can like them as well. So it helps order them, but I can monitor the chat as well. And if you think of anything in the future, just email fellowships@mail.rghi.org. Thanks. I'll just stop sharing. Oh, and you can also raise your hands, and I think I can give you permission to talk if you prefer that way as well. So we have a question which is asking if the salary is separated from the research costs. So that's right. So the salary will be determined by your host institution, and then on top of the salary, you'll get 150,000. So there are 2 separate items, sort of 2 separate costs. So next question is whether the grant covers institutional overhead costs. So the grant provides a flat 25% overhead that's calculated on your total. So I think the budget template would automatically calculate that for you. Okay, so in the chat, if you're a lecturer in an LMIC, are you classified as tenure track? So for eligibility, I would recommend you email us and we can discuss that by email as we can get more information. This will depend on what if the institution pays your salary. So if you could email Linda, that would be great, and then we can advise on your eligibility. The next question is, asking if you're currently employed in an institution, can it still serve as a host institution? So yes, we have no requirement for you to move institutions. You can definitely apply through the institution that you're currently working on, working in. So that's no problem. So then we have two questions here asking about if there's any age limit or age restriction. So there's no age limit or age restriction. The only restriction is not having more than 5 years post-PhD of experience. So if you obtained your PhD later in life, that's absolutely fine. Again, if you have any specific questions, please do email us and we can discuss your eligibility. Sorry. So the next question is, do I have to propose the salary of my current position, or I can propose the salary of a promoted position? And can I employ anyone else under me using the grant money? So the question of salary needs to be discussed with your host institution. This would be up to them. I know the institution I work in wouldn't allow you to promote yourself, so this would need to be discussed. And then within that question, can I employ anyone else under me using the grant money? You can employ a research assistant, for example. It will come out of the research costs and isn't any additional money. So you can include if necessary to the budget. Necessary to the project. So just make sure that if you are costing someone, it is needed. So Patience, I'm not sure if I understand. So are you asking if you can do less than full time on the project? So you can cost yourself in at 80% for personal reasons. So it's fine for us we expect to pay all of your salary. So we expect that all your working time is spent on the fellowship. So if you prefer to work at 80%, for example, for personal reasons, that's fine. You don't need to be 100%, but you can't cost yourself at 80% to then work 20% on other projects or grants. 100% of your working time should be dedicated to the project. I'm hoping I answered your question. If not, please ask it again. Thank you. Oh, another question. It's about helping finding a mentor. So the most appropriate would be for you to discuss this with your host institution. Maybe your sponsor or your supervisor can help you with identifying a mentor. This isn't something that RGHI can help you with, and it would need to come from yourself or your host institution to identify a mentor. So the next question is saying that in their institution, supervisors and head of departments also receive some salary support from funded projects, and asking if that would be an issue. And yes, we wouldn't expect to fund time for supervisors and head of departments, and that would not be an allowable cost. So if you look at what the fellowship will not fund, we will not fund administrative support. So I know some institutions really require people to add administrative support, but we will not fund that. We expect the fellows to provide the administrative support. We will not fund supervisor, mentors, or collaborator salary. We will not fund equipment over 5,000 and any non-research related activity costs. We will not fund furniture such as office furniture and laboratory furniture, or utilities such as electricity, gas, and water costs. Yes. Does the fellowship allow fellows with multiple funding? No. So like I said, we would expect to fund 100% of your time. So 100% of your working time salary needs to come for the fellowship, and we would expect you to drop your other commitments to focus on the fellowship. So the fellowship provides you with that time and space to work on your dedicated research project to become a research leader. And yeah, so we would expect you to drop any other projects that you might have. Yeah, please let me know. I know it's a bit difficult with the Q&A, but please let me know if you have any follow-up questions or if you would like any clarifications. Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So please do send us an email at fellowship@mail.rghi.org if you do have any questions or would like to discuss eligibility or any follow-on questions from today. The slides will be made available this week on the website. So like I said, keep an eye out, and the recording in a couple of weeks because we send it out to get subtitles. But that will be uploaded onto the website as well. So keep an eye. If not, thank you for joining. And yeah, I look forward to reading your applications, and please do drop us an email for any queries. We're here to help. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.